Yeah, we're live. It is way early. It's 5:39 here. I wanted to come on and do a live feed. I'm going to be busy later on at the time that I need to be on, normally at 7 o'clock. So I thought I would jump on and have a little conversation, mostly because I found something very interesting while I was looking. I was on YouTube watching some other videos. More specifically, I was watching stuff on the four-rotor Mazda, the 787B back in 1991 when they won the Le Mans with it. Finally won the big race, basically. But I was watching this. All of these historical perspectives I think are awesome. I like all of this stuff, and it's very, very cool. And so I was watching this video, and I think it was from a channel called Ideal Cars, and so they have a lot of good historical footage and stuff on it. The things on the motor development program. So it's all good stuff. It's all really interesting stuff for me. The thing that I found that was interesting, and I included it a screenshot of a photo that they used in this video, because oddly enough, in this Mazda, in this explanation, in this historical perspective of how Mazda would eventually come to win this race and all of the development that went into the four rotor and stuff, they made a reference to VTEC motors. The guy during the video, he said, yeah, and this is like VTEC on steroids, which it's not really. But when he said that, he put up this photo of a VTEC motor. And I thought it was very interesting because it's my photo. It's a photo that they took from one of my videos, or one of the stories that I did, because that engine is that motor with that valve cover and that IR deal is one that I use for a bunch of testing. And I know that because it has the unorthodox pulley. I mean, it's all the stuff that I did when we were doing that motor. In fact, that photo for that motor was just a mock-up. It never actually ran like that with that valve cover and stuff on there. I just put that on there for the photo to make it look pretty. So they took a good image, and then they used that image oddly, and this is just like totally arbitrary, that I would find something like this in a video about a Mazda four rotor with this B16 VTEC motor in there, and a photo from one of my things. So I thought it was really interesting. So I thought I wanted to jump on and tell you guys, how I'm kind of a big deal because I'm in other videos and didn't even know it. And I've run across this situation before where guys have blatantly taken stuff of mine, some of them, and I've seen it a lot online with companies that reference this testing for things when they're trying to sell products, camshafts or intake manifolds or whatever, and they just blatantly take a lot of this information and the graphs and the photos and the videos and stuff, and just use it as their own. A lot of that stuff, it belongs to, because if I sold the story to the guys at Hot Rod or whoever, I think technically all of that stuff is theirs, that it belongs to them. I'm surprised that there isn't more of that people go on and try to, police a little bit. That, for me, I don't care anything about that. Them using the photo is just cool. I just thought it was very interesting that I'm watching this historical perspective on how cool this car was and how loud it was and how they developed the four rotor and how it made all of this power. In fact, they even were going into the fact that they detuned this thing for the race, and what they said during the description is that while they were driving this, the guys were trying to get the combination of lap time and fuel mileage during the lap. So they were trying to, improve or decrease fuel consumption, try to improve their position so they could do fewer stops and stuff. And that the motor actually worked out fairly well, and that they were actually able to run the motor lighter because they convinced the when going through tech, they convinced them that this was a very small displacement, naturally aspirated motor, which technically it is. It's but obviously they were still working on the conversion factor for what a rotary makes relative to its, I guess, theoretical displacements. But at any rate, it's a very cool video, and so I recommend it if you guys are interested in looking at getting four-rotor information and information on what a big deal it was for the Japanese companies and the people in Japan that were all watching this car go out and do it, and how it was a underdog thing and shouldn't have happened, and it's a pretty interesting deal. But I just thought it was kind of cool that that it had that of all the places to find a VTEC photo. Tim, where's pizza at? I'm actually going to be going to have pizza probably before too long. You should put watermarks and everything. For me, that's not that big of a deal. And I don't even know which thing it came from. I've used that image, as you guys have seen in the videos I do. I use images over and over and over again, so there's no telling where that particular thing came from. That photo could have been from, I used it in stories for a lot of the import magazines way back. So, and that's why I tried to make it look pretty. And it has the blue anodized valve cover and the TWM. The thing is cool is that it has the TWM induction system on it. That's the one that I used to change the position of the injectors outside the air horns, and then made the slider assembly so I could change that. I didn't actually get a big change in power from moving the fuel from the position of the injectors. Once the injectors were in front of the air horn, that was kind of the big change in power. Moving it out, you could get past the point of where the cone from the injector that I was using, the pattern was starting to overhang the the radius of the air horn. So obviously that was not good, but it was kind of cool to see. You could see because you could see reflected waves happening, and you could see standoff in the fuel. It was just all kinds of neat stuff. And it'd been even better. And I don't think that we did it. I don't think we did it with a even with a timing light to take a look at a little bit better view of it. We did that on the I was running I wasn't running. Tom, my buddy Tom at VTEC was running his motorcycle on the chassis dyno, and we just had it strapped up, and he was just running it standing next to it, and we were videotaping the fuel going down, and then he had a timing light on it so we could strobe it, and then we were videoing it so you could see the fuel going in, and you could see the fuel swirling around. It was really kind of cool stuff to be able to watch that, especially able to watch it real time while you're standing next to a motorcycle, like at wide open throttle at how many miles an hour that was on the roller, because he was doing a bunch of things to get the bike ready for Bonneville. And so he because of the class it was in, he was limited in the kind of modifications that he could make and stuff. So he was doing a bunch of tuning and stuff. It was actually kind of a cool deal. I had people steal my underwater photography. Were they great white shark stuff? I just bought Texas Speed Stage 4 truck cam, 635 lift on their truck cam. I'd never heard of anything like that. Todd's in the house. What's up, man? Why so early? I got stuff to do later tonight, so I didn't know if I would be able to get there. The Kiwis made you do it, Dean? Yeah, I got some. That right there is actually not a moving box. That's a green screen box. Richard, you're gonna have to read everything out loud because I'm not gonna be, because I'm listening in the garage, but I'm not gonna be leaving the garage to read the chat. I get you. I took the rotary out of my RX-7 and put in a 6-liter. That's good. Whoa, VTEC power. I thought it was interesting. I just thought it was so weird. I was sitting on the couch and I said, Lisa, look at this photo. She said, yeah, it's a little Honda engine, right? I said, yeah, but it's mine. What are you going to teach us tonight? Well, the video that I'm working on is the The one I'm working on next is choosing truck cams. And basically what I've come to think about on this subject is that when I'm choosing truck cams, I would almost choose it based on displacement. And then the second thing would be, you know, personality, because what I would choose for a truck cam and what different people would choose for the truck cams is going to base, you know, an awful lot on what you want out of your truck. If it's a daily driver truck, because I would have to say most of the comments that I get about this kind of thing is that if they're looking at daily drivers, what they want is just more power, but they want more power down low from their daily drivers, which is harder to do on a truck application. And it's also, especially if we have the smaller motors, a 4.8 or 5.3, it's very easy to start losing power down in the range where you drive it a lot. So the question then becomes, is that trade-off worthwhile for whatever you get? It's pretty easy to gain power at 5,000, 5,500, 6,000. Pretty easy to gain, you know, significant amount of power in that range. Very much harder to do it in the lower ranges. And so you have that trade-off. And the trade-off becomes more pronounced on a smaller engine. A 4.8, for instance, in the video, we'll talk about the fact that I think I would only kind of pick a torque cam for that, and not even a stage 1 or a stage 2. I don't even know that I would go with I might go with the truck Norris cam, but I don't think so. I think I'd be more apt to pick the torque cam for a 4.8. For a 5.3, it becomes a little bit more difficult. For me, I would pick a truck Norris cam, and I'll show you why. But if I was before the truck Norris came out, I would think stage 1 cam for the for a 5.3. And for a 6.0, I would pick a stage 2. And I'll go over why specifically and I'm basing this primarily on and this is not the right way to do it. I'm basing it primarily on what I'm seeing on the engine dyno. And I don't recommend that for people. I'm just doing it that way for me. Probably more than likely, guys will be basing their decision for those kinds of camshafts on completely different criteria, and as well they should. If you want a stage 4 truck cam so that you could tell people that you have a stage 4, or you want a stage 4 truck cam because it does indeed make the most peak power, then those are all good reasons. If that's your deal, you have to take the good with the bad. If you take the big power on the top, you're going to lose power down low. You might lose a little drivability. It's going to have a more cammy sound. For a lot of guys, they're all in on that, and God bless them. that's what you want. That's what I mean. Ultimately, it becomes, for me, I look at where the thing's going to make power, where I'm going to use it, what is the trade-off. I look at all those things kind of logically, like I do on all of these, all the testing that I do. And then you look at it like, there's also the other side of that for the people that would not look at it logically. And I did that a lot, before. So that they would choose it for an entirely different reason. And that's what camshafts really come down to. And that's why it's hard for me, not just on truck cam, which is what I'll talk about in that video, but not just for truck cams. That's why it's so hard to answer the question, what is the best cam, irrespective of the name being used right now by Matt. Everybody's definition of what that is, like even if I just showed you power curves, okay, like here, this one does this, and this one does this, and this one does this. Even if there was one of them that I would pick for whatever reasons, I would just label and tell you, like, here's why I would do that. Other people could pick other ones. Their definition of best would be the one that makes the highest peak torque, or the highest average horsepower, or highest peak, whatever their thing is, the things that are more important to them. There's no way to argue away whatever my position would be relative to their position. And that's why it's so hard. Somebody said, "Oh, Richard, but you've tested all the cams, you know everything about them." One, that statement obviously is not true. The other thing is that even if I know that, ultimately comes down to still that being like wholly subjective, because the thing that you like is going to be the thing that you like. And it's like me telling you what color car you should pick. Well, let's say my favorite color is red, but you like blue or yellow or purple or whatever it is. And there's no way I should or would try to convince you that you should get this color car. I might point out things that like, hey, look, if you're going to resell the car, resell red works pretty well. But that might not be enough of a reason. Ultimately, you should pick the one that you like. If Marina Blue is your thing, or what is it, Calypso, or whatever color is your thing, then you should pick that. And there's nobody should tell you different, because you should like the thing that you like. And cams are totally like that. So that's why it's difficult for me when somebody says, hey, look, what's the best cam for my 6-liter? And you can even give me lots and lots of information. Oh, well, it's a 6-liter LY6. I'm getting ready to the VVT. It's in a truck that has this tire size and this gearing, and I'm using it as a daily driver. Perfect. And I want to use a stock converter. Okay, perfect. There's still about 500 or 600 camshafts that you could choose that would still fit that bill, with varying kinds of success and varying kinds of power curves from different companies with different prices, all of that stuff. There's no way that I could tell you which one of those is your best. I could tell you which one maybe that I might pick, but that's still not going to be the best thing according to whatever you think the best is. So ultimately, it's going to come down to you. That's why I like putting up the videos with, multiple selections to choose from with different kinds of power curves. So at least I can give you that. And the problem with that is, like I was talking about earlier, me picking the camshaft based just on that is just foolish, because, excuse me, when you're using the camshaft out in the real world, you have it in your truck and you're driving around. Most of the time you're spending driving around, you're not at wide open throttle. You're not even at even a enhanced throttle mode while you're driving down the road. If you're just cruising down the road, like say you're cruising down the freeway at 70 or 75 miles an hour, the camshaft is going to be at 2000 RPM, at part throttle. So you're spending time doing that. What does the camshaft do when you're doing that? At whatever percentage of time you're doing that with. How does it start up and idle and drive, and what kind of fuel mileage does it get? Obviously, very important now. All of those things become important, and should be, I think, at least a lot of those equally as important as what I'm looking at on a wide open throttle power curve, because that's just like one little thing. And yet I'll decide what camshaft I want based on that. And so I provide a whole bunch of those up on the channel so you can pick one. So like when I did a good example is the sloppy stage 2 versus the best cam, or the sloppy stage 2, or the sloppy stage 2 versus the truck Norris cam, or the truck Norris cam versus the best cam. You can see that they're different cams and they have different power curves. And so if you start out with going, well, I like the power curve of the truck Norris cam because I'm more interested in what's happening in this lower RPM range. And that's the argument that I would make on truck cams specifically for that kind of application. Even if I go to wide open throttle in my truck without any tuning in it, it's going to shift at like 5,000 or 5,500 RPM. So unless I do something to make it shift at 6,500 RPM, how much power it makes at 6,500 RPM is just totally irrelevant. Because if I'm never using it, then, and I would obviously change the shifting if I'm going to do that. But if I'm not using that, then it's totally irrelevant and shouldn't be part of the equation. Even if I show you that it got good gains there, if you're never there, you should just cut off that part of the curve and not worry about that and focus on the part of the curve where you're actually be using it, when you're using the power as one of your variables to pick that camshaft. So let's see what you have. Let's see what you guys have going on. That will be the next one. And then I'm working on the 900 horsepower big block Chevy combinations, basically how to make 900 horsepower. And it'll be similar to the other versions that I've already done, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we'll take a look at different ways to do it, with boost and nitrous or strokers, those kinds of things. So that will be interesting stuff. So let's hear what you guys are building. Put an electric motor in it, run your truck engine at peak efficiency to charge when you're getting home instant torque. The electric motor definitely does have instant torque. So I have a 226, 230, 598 lift, 112 going in my 408, 4,200 pound truck. Why does everyone say the cam is too small? What would you run in this motor? A 226, 230 cam is small in terms of making lots of power in a 408, but I don't think it's too small for a daily driver. Yeah, Casey, I did start early tonight. Early bird special, that's right. Matthew, thank you very much. So I'm building LM7 and went with the truck Norris. I think you'll be happy with that. You definitely will be happy with the power curve, the power gains from that thing. Taj, why does Neil need to be banned? Because he wants to put an electric motor in something? No Tesla fanboys. Teslas are fast. Yeah, make sure you put thumbs up. Do like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. What's the new Roadkill episode? I don't know what Roadkill is doing. Do you center your LS oil pumps with feeler gauges, or you just bolt them on and send it? I don't ever do them with feeler gauges. We just put them on. Yeah, Todd, I would recommend, and we talked about that. We talked about a surge tank, and we talked about the setup that we use on our World Challenge car and stuff. And it's a good idea, especially if you don't have baffles in there. Otherwise, you're gonna have to make sure that you constantly have lots of fuel in the tank. So you don't want it sloshing around. If it's starved for a second or whatever, it's not really gonna hurt anything, and you just don't want it to be doing it under acceleration. But a surge tank is really good because all you have to do is pump fuel up to it. The surge tank will always stay full, and then there won't be any sloshing, especially if you make the surge tank, if you size it so that, like when we did ours, we did it, fairly tall so that it hold about a gallon, but it was fairly narrow, so there was not movement, and we could get basically down to the last drop of fuel. Building a 460 truck highboy for Brock heads, that should be good on a 460. Really don't understand why there are truck cams. Why not use a stage 1 car cam? That's like race versus blower versus turbo versus NA versus stage 3 cam argument. The truck cams are traditionally, the truck cam designation is an awful lot like the RV cam from back in the day. It's a very similar thing. It was just a designation of the specs on the camshaft that you use for a mild application. So that, and that market is huge, so you want to have something that caters specifically to that market. They're generally low lift, and then they're generally fairly mild on the duration. Most of them, even stage 4, I think it's going to be probably like 224 or something like that. So they're going to be all smaller than that. They're going to start off in the 200 range, 206 or something like that, and they're usually fairly low lift too. I think most of the Ryan Tooley Racing truck cams are like 550 lift. So I think those can even be used with the factory LS3 style spring. You can't use them with the 706 springs because those will only go to about, I think, less than 500 lift. But if you upgrade to the fairly cheap, inexpensive LS3 springs, you can. Building a 77 Cherokee with a 6-liter sloppy best cam. Bought it before your videos. That's a good cam. It works fine. What size wastegate and blow-off valve would you recommend? If you have a 6-liter and an 80 millimeter, probably a 60 millimeter wastegate, and a blow-off valve like the ones that we use are the Raceport blow-off valves from TurboSmart. I have tested dampers. A company came out to VTEC and ran a bunch of different style dampers. I've not done a test, I don't think, with an ATI versus a factory one. I think I should. A drag pack will beat a plaid. Will it do that on the street? Butcher, we ran the motor on Moonshine. Texas Speed Stage 4 is a 225, 231, 635, 635 for the LA3. It's that big? That's pretty big. That's a lot of lift for that duration. Travis, somebody did talk about the WCP or WPC treatment already in one of our previous ones. I'm contemplating the Truck Norris cam and supercharger on my 06 GTO. I think you'll be happy with that. The Truck Norris cam is a Brian Tooley Racing cam. I think the way that you modify a Tesla Plaid is put a Kenny Bell boosted pump on it. See, Slow Fusion is thinking the same thing. A T25 turbo that makes 660 horsepower. That seems like a lot for that frame. Had my 87 Formula 350 board to 383, still using a TPI system with Excel injectors. Jim from TPI. Well, Jim's good people. He knows what he's doing. And 36-pound injector should be enough for that. The Truck Norris cam works really good. Take a look at you'll see it in, I mean, I have a bunch of videos up on the Truck Norris cam already, but you've got another one coming up that will also illustrate it, but it makes better power than the stage 1 or stage 2 and makes as much torque as the torque cam. So it's really kind of the best combination. Post pictures of your plum crazy rattle can paint jobs. Any here running Holley Terminator with the turbo, and does the ECU control the turbo? It doesn't control the turbo. It can control the wastegate because they have a boost controller that you can run with the Holley. 660 would be a lot. I thought he was saying that 660 horsepower was one of those turbos. That's why I was talking about it being a lot. But even for factory ones, even for 2, it would be a lot. Richard, have you ever torn down a stripped roots blower and shaved off the apex seals? I inherited Mooneyham 1271, but the strips are worn and damaged, and the Teflon really isn't made for the street. Yeah, it'll still work without them. We're throwing away big motors here at work. How big are they, Dan? More to come on the LS swap Sonoma. That should be good. With the truck Norris cam, should I also upgrade valve springs on the 6-liter? Yes, you're going to have to. Some stage 2 truck cams come in 2 flavors. Yeah, they have high lift and low lift ones. And there would be a little bit of difference in power from going from a 522 lift to a 600 lift, but it's not going to be a lot, actually. And there's actually not a whole bunch going from 550 down to 500. There is some. Richard, I know it's off topic. There's no topic here. Just I mean, that's just the starting point for the discussion, but you can ask any questions that you want. I heard you and someone else say that for the Chrysler 2.5 automatic transmissions, somehow limited torque or power in some way. Any truth to this? They didn't have any electronic controls limiting power, but the automatic transmission itself will make less power than the manual trans will, if that's what we were talking about. Would an LQ4 with 706 heads, 2-inch intake valve, truck Norris cam, TBS combo be good for towing? Yes, that would be a really good combination. You're gonna have to be mindful of the tune on it because of the compression, but once you get that, you're all set. At the time, Todd, at the time they were out of sloppy or out of truck Norris cam, so even the sloppy stage 2, that will still work in a 6-liter. That's a much better choice in a 6-liter than it is in a 5.3 or a 4.8. What's the best LS truck cam? I think we went through that pretty well already, right? My upgrade cam lift pretty much equals spring coil bind. Well, you don't want that. you don't want to reach coil bind. You want to be before coil bind. But 20 or 30 away from coil bind is probably fine. You're not late. I'm early, actually. Yeah, an 862 head is the same as a 706 head. What cam size would be good for a stock LM7 and a 78 Monte Carlo with a 700 R4, 373 posi? I don't want to change the stock converter. Just want to get close to 400 horsepower. The truck Norris cam will be good for that, or a stage 1 truck cam. Each of our cars has 4 traction motors, so 600 horsepower in jackrabbit mode. They can accelerate 0 to 60 in 10 seconds for a 60,000 pound car. That's a lot. Is that like a freight car or something? What is it? Bob, you want a 5.3 swap for a BMW? If you're doing cam and springs, I would go the truck Norris cam in a 5.3. Dirt cheap, 4.8 in a drag race S10. I was using a sloppy stage 2. Yeah, Matt's done that a lot. Pulled all the way to 7,500. I added 3 degrees of duration. It would fall off at 6,000. Same lift. I use the same springs. How did you add 3 degrees of duration? And adding 3 degrees of duration is not going to make the cam fall off earlier, especially if you add 3 degrees of exhaust duration. Actually, if you add 3 degrees on either side of that camshaft, it's not going to make it RPM earlier than the sloppy stage 2 would. It would only help that. And 7,500, I don't know if that's an NA motor or if it's a turbo motor. And I don't know what intake manifold you have on there, but that cam's not making power. It's not making a power peak at 7,500 RPM, even in a 4.8. I must add a G25 can do 500 horsepower on a low capacity, high revving 4-valve. I'm still surprised that I thought that we were talking about a T25. Richard, the other night you mentioned Chrysler EQ heads. A company called Pi or Performance Injection offers a CNC ported version that flows 270. That would be a good head then. If it flows 270, that's good. I thought we were just talking about the factory replacement EQ iron heads, just like a stock head. What stall will most improve acceleration on a 5 through the truck Norris cam? I think most guys would be around 2800. This is the best live chat channel. All the others tell me stuff I learned. We're going over a lot of, you know, we're not getting ultra technical here, but there are some guys here who can. I missed a small block Chevy when you can bolt on 50 horsepower before you even thought about cams. I just don't want to go back. A stock small block Chevy, especially early, the muscle car stuff had pretty big cams in them, lots of duration anyway. They had almost no lift, but lots of duration. So you could do other things, but any sort of smog era one needed a camshaft. What would be similar to a truck Norris cam for a 94 351? The Extreme Energy 274 cam would be a good choice. Otherwise, there's not going to be one that's truck Norris-y for that. But you'll be happy with that 274 cam. If you want a cam for your daily 6-liter, the one that I would pick would be either that truck Norris cam, or if you want to go slightly smaller than that and pick the torque cam or a stage 1 truck cam. Oh, a 10-car BART train has 6,000 horsepower. Okay. Oh, so these are BART cars that you were talking about? Let's see some solid roller LS. So I just cut a 7-inch hole on my battery tray for the dry sump oil tank. Well, that'll be good. Any word yet on the Iron Duke dyno? I don't have an Iron Duke to dyno test yet. Is it possible to rebuild stock junkyard lifters, put my 6-liter back together after capping the rings and some of the rockers are loose? I figure the lifters are gunked up. You can buy LS7 lifters, or you can just go get more used lifters out of the wrecking yard. The 60 engines in the 600-inch range are great. Tall decks with thin bores, all of them at 409, 4-inch stroke, or 421 cubes. You can handle a 78, 75 at 12 pounds of boost. Yeah, you have. Oh, tomorrow you're gonna pull the bed on the truck and put the fuel system in. Okay. What you could do, Todd, is just drop a pump in there and see what happens. Drop a pump and a sock on the pump. Drop it in there and just see what happens. See if you get. Drive it around. Don't drive it around crazy, but see if you get sloshing. See if that is a problem that you need to address, and then address it. I would do something, but you could try that and see what happens. We show up and see what happens. CX Racing GT 3071.6 AR in a T25 inlet housing. Have you done any videos with the factory specific LSA blower on a cathedral port? I haven't done that swap because I never owned an LSA blower, and much less had the adapters and stuff. But I know that people are doing it and it works. Racer D, I did get the link that you sent. Yeah. What is the poll? We do have to have a poll tonight. Okay. I haven't done one yet. The other thing that happened today, I was talking to Mark Sanchez, and he's going to be pulling out a running Northstar engine. So I might have a Northstar to run, and I think it's all stock. So in fact, we'll use that as the poll. Will the Northstar and I think somebody told me that the Northstar uses the same metric bell housing as the 3800. So somebody let me know and confirm that. Will the Northstar, will the stock Northstar handle? Okay, so if I have a stock Northstar engine and it's running, driving around and working, will it handle 10 pounds of boost on the dyno? So that will be our poll for tonight, and not break. So we'll see what happens. Does a 58 tooth reluctor mean that your 5.3 is a Gen 4? Yes. It could be a 3.5, but I think it's I think that guarantees that it's a 4. Do you think porting the stock 243 heads on a 5.3 with a truck Norris cam would be worthwhile? No, if you already have them off and you could just fluff them up, you could do that. But I don't think with that camshaft and a stock truck intake manifold that you're in a position where you're going to be gaining a bunch from the cylinder head. Travis, the nice thing is that we don't have to worry about starter motors on the Northstar because the dyno will start it. The poll should have been, will multi-port fuel injection fix the problems of the Holly 2-barrel on the Iron Duke? What problem did you have? Did you have a distribution problem or something? Is a 224 Texas speed cam good for an LS 5.7 liter daily driver? That's not the cam I would pick, but it will work. Is it true there's an LS head bolt swap kit for the Northstar? Does it use the same diameter bolts like the 4200 does? Can we ask for how long at 10 PSI? It just needs to make power runs at 10 PSI. There needs to be a maybe option. What is this comment that keeps coming up? Just curious. Why are you praising the 400 cubic inch engines? Who is melting these down? What is going on with those? What's the story with that? Goodman, most, thank you again for delivering the 8.1. Most engine can take 10 pounds of boost with good fuel, the right timing. I agree too. I just hear the horror stories about all of these various engines, the Northstar in particular, that the Northstar has whatever ring gap the Northstar has right now. I'm not going to do anything to the Northstar. I'm going to put it on there. I'm going to run it. And if it works, it works. And then I'm going to put boost to it. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Cam Motion's little lope cam is 216, 224, 108 plus 3 with a 553 lift. It should be comparable to the truck Norris. Is that a question or is that a state? Okay, there is a question mark there. I don't know. I've never tried that cam. I was just confused. I have what I think is an L33 block. One head is a 799. The others are 243. That's not uncommon, but it has a plain timing cover. So it doesn't have a front cam sensor. Is the cam sensor in the rear? And you're sure that it has a 58X? Yeah, Todd. I thought we talked about that. I thought I'd let you know when I'm going to be taking off. Yes, my buddies are all guides. I have a boat myself, but too lazy to fish. They're on the river right now. Oh, steelheads. You were saying there wasn't a big difference in power between a 500 and a 550 lift cam. Brian Tooley did the NSR cams, and the NSR cams are basically low lift versions of the truck cams, I think. And he said when they tested them, there wasn't a, it's 10 horsepower or something. I haven't tested that, but I'm just going off of what he said. 2007 LR4 is still 24 tooth, but has Gen 4 rods. Yeah, they have the Gen 3.5 stuff where they started integrating the Gen 4 rods and stuff. The block is still a Gen 3, and it sounds like that sounds like that L33 that somebody was talking about earlier. If it has a rear cam sensor, then that's still, I think, technically a Gen 3 block. Okay, you need to watch the video. Yep, thanks for providing the information. My LR4 for sure is a cam sensor in the rear. That's got to still be a Gen 3 then, even if it has the good rods in it, which is nice. Wayne, I have a BTR Stage 3 with spring kit on my LM7 and plan on boosting it soon. We'll be better off swapping. I don't think you need to swap to a turbo cam for that. Just run the cam that you have. It will work fine. Did the Northstar come with a supercharger? No, it didn't. This one doesn't have a supercharger. They did have the LS2 stuff had weird combinations of 58X, and they had 1X front cover stuff. So maybe they were mixing and matching stuff. The common problem, Goodman, is that, at least what guys are saying about the Northstar, I have no experience other than seeing them run on the chassis dyno, but they were saying that they blow head gaskets and things. Can there be too much overlap? Yeah, you could have the wrong cam in there if you want, the wrong the wrong cam. There's always, you could go to the very, very extreme level of stuff if you want to do that, and there could be too much. Oh no, we're not moving out of Northern California, no. Can a 4.8 be bored to 6.0 and use 4.8 crank and rods? Yeah, that's what I'm doing on one of the 4.8s. We're going to try it and see what happens. I thought you were talking about when am I going to VTEC? Richard, what's your opinion? AFR heads for the LS platform? If not AFR, which heads are you seeing that you like? Les, take a look at the videos that I have up on all of the heads. There's lots and lots of good choices depending on what you're trying to get done. Ported stock ones work really well. Airflow Research has good stuff. TrickFlow has good stuff. There's lots of good ones out there. Where should I go to order a Truck Norris cam? Go to Brian Tooley Racing. Richard, will Brian Tooley do custom ground camshafts? Yes, they will. Northstars will break head bolts and strip them out and leak oil like crazy. Oh, and the starters will go out under the intake manifold. Okay. There were versions with blowers. The later ones, that, like the blower that I used, was a Cadillac blower. I don't know. I don't know. Were they still calling that a Northstar motor though? Does 58 tooth crank work in a Gen 3 block? Yes. Yeah, the tree houses, no more. What's the maximum RPM on a 5.3? I don't know. It's going to be valve train related. So you're running S475 on it, plan on turning it up. So that's like 1,000 horsepower. Then dry sleeve it since it's aluminum and do a 427. Can I put a Truck Norris cam in my 06 GTO? Yes. Are you going to test the Northstar now? No, I don't have it available yet. I don't know how much boost a stock LS1 will take. I know it'll take 12 or 13 pounds. We've done that before. But on those aluminum blocks for an LS1, I normally don't go more than 1,000 horsepower. Neil, you want us to put 4 and 5 valve heads and a flat plane crank on an LS? Is that what you're asking? Northstars built after 2004 have the LS series head bolts, and those don't blow head gaskets, so I've read. Okay. If you could only upgrade the exhaust cam, would you go a single pattern or reverse pattern on a turbo application? I would put an NA cam in a turbo application, and it would be a dual pattern, and it would have more exhaust duration than intake duration. Is there a database on head casting numbers? Did you have a question about a casting number on a LS head? There are guys running 4.8s and 5.3s to above 8,000 RPM. We know that that's possible with even with a stock crank, but the valve train is going to be the limiting thing, not the short block, especially if you put rods and pistons in it. But even stock stuff, we go to 7,500 all the time on junkyard stuff. Yeah, if you look at the casting number and ask us, obviously here we can tell you what that casting number head is. So will a stock Northstar handle 10 pounds of boost? So far, look at everybody's everybody's in happy mode today. We got 84% saying yes, that the Northstar will withstand 10 pounds of boost. I heard once that one of the problems with the Northstar head gaskets was from the robots at the factory slamming the motor into the firewall. Wow, that's a good conspiracy theory thing. 2003 5.3 Tahoe heads, keep or replace. Those are good. They work great. And if it's a 2003 5.3 Tahoe, it's gonna more than likely be a 862 or a 706 head. Yeah, an 862 that's a good head. That's a good head for a 5.3. It works really good. I'm LS swapping my Firebird with a 5.3 and contemplating putting in a turbo kit at 14 pounds. Would stock internals be okay? I'm already doing MLS head gaskets and ring gap. Yeah, are you putting a camshaft in that? So if you're putting a camshaft in a 5.3 at 14 pounds, if you have the right size turbo, you're going to have the right size turbo. Otherwise, it's not going to support 14 pounds. Just so you know, that's going to be more than 800 horsepower. I guess it's always the firewall that blows. Okay, so when they're putting it in, they're hitting it. I don't know. I still don't know how even hitting that is going to cause a head gasket problem. Is it distorting the head up or something? But I'm all in on blaming the robots. Most of the SOs are hoping to see a Northstar window. Nice. Then we can actually see the Northstar through it. I know, Eric. What's going to happen? What's going to happen if we have great success with the Northstar? If we just keep turning it up and it takes 25 pounds of boost in all stock trim with no ring gap or anything, and then the price for Northstars are going to go through the roof. Yeah, Dan, I would be surprised if they go in from the top like that. That would be potential for scratching and stuff. Wouldn't they just build the subframe and lift everything up? I'm sure that's going to work, but we don't know for how long. You'll see the Northstar and the Big Dipper. That's one of the connecting rods, right? And the piston. It's good to hear, Todd. I'm glad you're working. I'm glad you're doing well, man. Got to visit your gal. That's always good. A quad 4 would shadow ops. A quad 4 would be awesome, as would a Crossfire 350, because there would be nothing better than a Crossfire 350 with 2 turbos on it, one blowing into each one of the Crossfire deals. Although that there's no way to get enough fuel into that. Richard, will a 5.3 with an LS9 cam, 4L60, 2800 stall be a decent cruiser? I don't think you're going to be happy with that combination. I don't think you're going to be happy with that camshaft. There would be a lot better camshafts that you could put in to be cruising around with. That cam's not going to come alive till the very top of the RPM range. It's going to be really soft down low. The converter is going to help it a little bit. Northstars will supposedly turn 7,500 to 8,000 RPM in stock form. Do you have a minute to elaborate on H62 heads? There's no reason to elaborate on it. They work good. It works really good on a high user on this channel. Obviously, you're having problems. The H62 head is the factory 5.3 head. It works really good for that bore size. In fact, when I did the testing, it did better than all the other factory cathedral port heads on that bore size. So I would recommend that head. And if you want to make, it's a head that you could also make 1,000 horsepower with. If you want to add a turbo to it, you put springs in it, put a camshaft in it, it will work great. You can make more power with an aftermarket cam, an aftermarket head or a ported version of that head, but you don't need that until you've done a lot of other stuff. What engine management are you planning to use for the Northstar? Well, I'm hoping we can run it with Holly. I don't know. Does anybody know what is the crank signal from a Northstar? What is it? Does anybody know what the trigger wheel is? I know. I don't know what the spammers are all jumping on board. Richard, have you heard of a Ford 352? Yeah, it's an FE motor. Mark Sanchez has one in a Galaxy at his place. Two more minutes. Actually, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Yeah, the Aurora was a 4-liter. The 4-liter Aurora motor, wasn't that the one that Shelby put in that CSX thing that he did? Northstar used GM DIS, but I don't remember how many teeth. Doing an LS swap, 81, 5.3 Gen 3 stock intake. I want to run the Summit 75 Turbo, Oklahoma Speed Shop Turbo Kit, Holly Terminator. You need big injectors. I'd put 80-pound injectors in it at least. You're going to need a big pump. You need a camshaft. The Truck Norris cam will work good in that if you want it. A stage 1 turbo cam or stage 1 NA cam, almost anything will work on that. Racer D, you forgot a 406. Does spool respond better to a larger stroke or a larger bore? It responds best to displacement increase, not either one of those. I still have to go down and get that 4.8 running. It needs a lifter. It needs a valve in the head and new lifter trays. Uh-oh. That's sorry to hear that, Todd. Series 1 and yes, but they had custom cams that made 300 horsepower. Oh yeah, a 410 also and a 391. Good call, Casey. All cams are turbo cams. Last question. What was your secret runner like in that 4.6? There's no secret one, but I still have the intake manifold, so you're welcome to test whichever one you want to work best. Eric, 244, 248. That's a big cam for a 5.3. You don't need anywhere near that. You could take, I would take 20 degrees out of both of those and to run on a turbo 5.3. And on that note, it's time to get going. Thank you guys all showing up for the early version. We'll take a look at we're still at 84% saying yes, that they think that the Northstar is going to work. So we'll end our poll. Tom, I did see your question about the Ford 352. It was an FE. So I think everybody answered that already. Thank you guys all for showing up, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.